So hi, here's Okidoky. I frequently get asked about my build I used to get to rank 14, and I want to explain a little bit what I'm thinking about. This build, well, it's not a corner build, but it's a slow defensive build, and it's based around the spires and the pylon, this whole pylon. It's inspired by the leveling guide from Taiman, uh, from yeah, it was on Reddit and um, in the Discord as well. A great guide. I'll link it. If you're not rank 10 yet, you should check it out. It's still viable, even though it's from 2 weeks ago. Nevertheless, you can see the build here, and the idea behind it is basically keeping everything in range of the spires, so they melt everything and make sure the spires survive. That's pretty basic. What I use is quite strong tanks around it. So I have the shield bearer in the back, I have plague bearer in the front, the golem obviously, and also hammer throwers are great tank. And then obviously plague bearers to slow everything down, which adds a lot of survivability because everything of the opponent does basically 50% damage because its attack so slow, and it also moves slower, which gives the spires more time to do work. Also, it's good to have a lot of small units, like 2 golems. I think wouldn't be as good as golem plus shield bearer because of the soul pylon, which is an absolute beast, highly overpowered in my opinion. So are the mind shrooms in front of my composition, very strong as well, because they slow the enemies down and they let the soul pylon fire. So it's quite a strong setup, I think. It has a few disadvantages as well, which I go into in a bit. So basically, it all comes down to keeping the enemies at around this space here, as long as they're there, and they don't kill the spire. I usually win the match, and the whole composition is about keeping the enemy there. The shrooms do a great work of stalling the enemy in that range, because once the first troops walk in, they get converted, everything stops, punches them, and they are already in range of the spire. Golem obviously is a tough target to beat down fully. Works great. And at that time already the hammer throwers are in front, so are the shield bearers, which support as well, and they support from enemies from the back as well. That position. I have a boombot. I quite like the boombot in this composition because it gives, well, a lot more survivability obviously because the tanks get revived, but also gives a lot of more soul pylon shots. And soul pylon shots are very important for this build to deal with some of the disadvantages. If you're lucky and hit a critical target, this can basically win you the game. So let's look at the gameplay. And this is one of the matches you see all the time, I guess from rank 11 on, the usual Righteous Defender spam. As you can see, the shrooms do great work. They have, and I didn't mention it before, they as well as I do, use the what I call the burying skeletons to look them up, and they attack from the back. But from the positioning, usually the shield barriers are around the spire at that time, so are the hammer throwers, and this usually works out quite fine to defend up to 2 barrages or up to 2 groups of those rising warriors, what I called. So this is another reason why I have located those 2 groups in the back. So you can see everything holds up relatively good, and yeah, looking not too bad, but then Spire fall, and basically this is the beginning of the end. From then on, cannot do much more. Everything else gets overrun. That's the Righteous Defender move. In the next game, obviously Righteous Defender looks kind of similar, and here's why I have Risen Warriors as well. They take out the Boombot directly, which is great. This really helps. And they also do some work at the back line. But you also see here they killed the Mine Corruptor, but at the same time the Frost Wizard got sniped from the Soul Pylon. And I think so did Barrier Monk. So the Soul Pylon is basically the MVP. If it hits the right target, you outright win the game. And since I have a lot of units standing around my pylons, it shoots all the time. So I have a good chance to survive a long time and basically shoot everything down with the pylon. That's why this build is relatively strong. Let's look at one counter build. I mean, the build revolves around having the enemy at my yard, but not too close. And so one obvious counter build is everything that doesn't move into my spires, like the corner build like this. Those are extremely annoying counter builds with the Soul Pylon spam as well. If they hit the right target, I definitely lose the match. So my Soul Pylon is already gone, but it's not too bad. It cannot shoot either way. Yeah, I was lucky here, and I could win, but usually those end in a draw or I lose the match. Same thing, I mean, if you look at the composition, you can figure out the weaknesses. For example, a few more Risen Warriors in the back and Spires will fall. There are a lot of possibilities to counter this build, but it's usually reasonably strong against the normal Righteous Defender spam and other swarm builds. So that's why it carried me relatively straightforward to rank 14. If you're not 14 yet, here is another version of the build I used to get there for basically without the Soul Pylon. So this carried me up to there. Okay, if you have any more questions about the build, just let me know. You can hit me up in Discord or Reddit, and wish you good luck, Commander.